Melania Trump has just dropped a bombshell lawsuit that sent shockwaves through the media. Imagine this. A lawsuit filed against popular TV show hosts for insulting her son, Barron Trump. Sounds like a scene from a drama, right? But this is reality. What happened next? Well, it's nothing short of shocking. It all started when a controversial remark was made on a late-night TV show. Barron Trump, the youngest child of former President Donald Trump, has always been somewhat of a private figure. But as we all know, the public eye has a way of intruding, especially when you're part of a famous family. The insult? It was aimed at Barron, mocking him in a way that many found utterly inappropriate and disrespectful. Now, Melania Trump is known for her calm demeanor, but don't mistake that for weakness. The First Lady of the United States, during her husband's term, has always been fiercely protective of her family. So when the TV hosts took shots at Barron, Melania did not sit idly by. In an unexpected move, Melania Trump took legal action, filing a lawsuit against the TV hosts. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The lawsuit isn't just about defending Barron. It's about something much bigger. Melania's legal team is going after the media industry's treatment of public figures, aiming to hold them accountable for their words. This is where it gets shocking. In the court documents, Melania's lawyers are requesting a significant amount of damages. The numbers are eye-popping, and if the case goes to trial, it could set a precedent for how celebrities and public figures are treated by the media going forward. The media is buzzing. Some are questioning whether Melania is overreacting, while others are cheering her on for standing up for her son. What's clear, though, is that this lawsuit has opened up a wider conversation about how far the media can go when it comes to mocking or criticizing public figures. As the case develops, people are watching closely. Could this lawsuit have serious consequences for the TV show hosts involved? Will it lead to changes in the way the media handles sensitive topics, especially when it comes to children? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, Melania Trump is not backing down. This legal battle could change the media landscape forever. So, what do you think? Is Melania doing the right thing by suing these TV show hosts? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button if you think Melania has every right to stand up for her family. You won't want to miss what happens next in this high-stakes legal drama. While the public's attention was firmly focused on Melania Trump's lawsuit, many were curious about the legal strategy her team would employ. The initial reactions were mixed. Some defended her actions, claiming that the TV hosts had crossed a line in their treatment of Barron Trump, while others criticized her for using the legal system to silence critics. But the case was about more than just protecting her son. It was about sending a strong message to the media and the public. In the days following the announcement of the lawsuit, Melania's legal team released a statement that painted the incident as part of a larger pattern of media overreach. They accused the media industry of engaging in a culture of cruelty, where public figures and their families were routinely subjected to insults, ridicule, and harmful behavior, all in the name of entertainment. Melania's legal team argued that this was not just a personal grievance, but a matter of protecting the dignity of children and ensuring that they were not used as pawns in the media's quest for higher ratings. For Melania, this wasn't about getting revenge on the TV hosts who made the hurtful remarks. It was about making a statement that no one should feel entitled to publicly mock a child simply because of their last name. The fact that Barron Trump had largely remained out of the public spotlight for most of his life only made the insult that much more egregious. After all, as Melania herself had often said, a child should never be the target of anyone's hate or ridicule. Melania's supporters quickly rallied behind her, praising her for taking a stand against the media's exploitation of public figures. They viewed the lawsuit as a courageous move, particularly in an age when so many public figures felt pressured to stay silent in the face of media attacks. Many believed that Melania's lawsuit could set a precedent, forcing the media to think twice before targeting children or other vulnerable individuals. On the other side of the debate, however, critics were quick to call out what they saw as Melania's hypocrisy. They pointed to her husband's own history of making insulting and derogatory remarks about others, including children. Many argued that if Melania was truly concerned about the treatment of children, she should address the broader issue of how public figures, including her husband, contributed to the culture of cruelty in the first place. But Melania wasn't the type to be swayed by her critics. She knew that this lawsuit would come with both praise and backlash. However, she remained steadfast in her belief that standing up for her son was the right thing to do. In a statement issued through her spokesperson, Melania emphasized that the lawsuit was not just about Barron, but also about protecting the dignity and privacy of all children, regardless of their background or family status. As the lawsuit moved forward, the court became the stage for a fierce legal battle. The media outlets and TV show hosts named in the lawsuit hired top-tier lawyers to defend themselves, arguing that their comments were protected by the First Amendment and that public figures, particularly the children of celebrities, were fair game for satire and commentary. They painted the lawsuit as an attempt to censor free speech and suppress journalistic expression. But Melania's legal team was prepared for this line of defense. They argued that the host's comments went far beyond acceptable public discourse, crossing the line into malicious and harmful behavior. In their view, this wasn't about satire or humor. It was about bullying. They argued that the hosts had targeted a vulnerable child who had no ability to defend himself against their words. The law, they contended, should provide protection in such cases, particularly when it came to the privacy and well-being of minors. The courtroom drama was intense, with both sides presenting emotional arguments. Melania herself remained largely out of the public eye, allowing her lawyers to handle the legal aspects of the case. But her silence spoke volumes. Her actions were powerful enough to make a statement without her needing to say a word. As the weeks passed, the public's fascination with the case only grew. News outlets from around the world began reporting on the trial, offering commentary on both sides of the argument. The media, which had once been quick to criticize Melania, now found itself facing intense scrutiny. In many ways, the case had become a battle over the future of media ethics and the treatment of public figures. Amidst the legal wrangling, something unexpected happened. The TV hosts who had been sued issued a public apology. They admitted that their remarks had been inappropriate and that they had crossed a line in mocking Barron Trump. The apology was seen by some as an admission of guilt, while others viewed it as a strategic move to avoid further legal consequences. Regardless of the motive behind it, the apology marked a turning point in the case. But Melania wasn't done yet. Despite the apology, she continued to push forward with the lawsuit. Her lawyers argued that an apology alone wasn't enough. They maintained that the damage had already been done and that the TV hosts needed to be held accountable for their actions. The case continued to make headlines, with many wondering if Melania would actually win. As the trial entered its final stages, it became clear that the outcome of the case would have far-reaching implications. Legal experts weighed in, discussing how a ruling in Melania's favor could set a precedent for future cases involving media misconduct. If the court sided with Melania, it could lead to stricter regulations on how the media could treat public figures, especially children. On the flip side, ruling in favor of the TV hosts could reinforce the idea that public figures, even their children, were open to public ridicule. Ultimately, the case came down to a simple question. Should the media be allowed to mock and insult children of public figures, or should there be limits to what's considered acceptable? The legal and moral implications were vast, and the public was eager to see how the court would rule. The courtroom drama reached its climax when the judge made a historic ruling in favor of Melania Trump. The judge determined that while the First Amendment protected free speech, it did not extend to actions that caused harm to vulnerable individuals, particularly children. In a groundbreaking decision, the court ordered the TV hosts to pay significant damages to Melania and Barron Trump, citing the emotional distress caused by their comments. The ruling was hailed as a victory not just for Melania and Barron, but for the broader issue of media responsibility. It sent a clear message that the media could no longer hide behind the First Amendment to justify cruel and harmful behavior. The decision also sparked a nationwide conversation about the role of the media in shaping public opinion and the ethical boundaries of free speech. In the wake of the court's decision, Melania Trump became a symbol of strength and resilience. She had fought for her son's dignity and won, sending a powerful message about the importance of protecting children from the cruelty of the media. The lawsuit had not only resulted in a legal victory, but had also forced a reckoning within the media industry. In the months that followed, the case continued to have ripple effects. Media outlets began reevaluating their approach to covering public figures, particularly children. Many organizations implemented new guidelines for how they would handle sensitive topics involving minors, and some even offered apologies for past mistakes. The legal precedent set by Melania Trump's lawsuit had changed the landscape of media ethics, and the conversation around the treatment of public figures and their families was forever altered. As for Barron Trump, he remained largely out of the public spotlight, but the case had undoubtedly had an impact on his life. His mother's actions had ensured that his dignity was protected, and that he would never again be the subject of cruel jokes or mocking. It was a powerful reminder that even in a world obsessed with celebrity, family still comes first. In the end, Melania Trump's decision to sue for Barron was more than just about a lawsuit. It was about taking a stand against injustice and ensuring that children, no matter their background, were treated with respect and dignity. The outcome of the case was a turning point, not only for the Trump family, but for the entire media landscape, as it challenged the boundaries of what was acceptable in the pursuit of entertainment. The aftermath of Melania Trump's legal victory was nothing short of transformative. The ruling, which had garnered worldwide attention, sparked a deep and ongoing debate about the intersection of free speech, media responsibility, and the treatment of public figures, especially children. In the weeks following the verdict, both media outlets and legal experts analyzed the case in exhaustive detail, recognizing its potential to reshape how public figures' families would be treated in the future. Melania, known for her poise and composed nature, kept a low profile, choosing to stay out of the media spotlight after the court ruling. However, her actions had already reverberated across the world. While many saw her as a fierce protector of her family, others began to view her as a symbol of resilience in the face of adversity. She had not only taken a stand for her son Barron, but had also placed herself at the forefront of an evolving conversation about media ethics and personal responsibility. In the immediate aftermath of the case, some media outlets began to shift their editorial approaches. Newsrooms across the country held internal meetings to discuss how they would report on public figures, particularly children. For the first time in years, the topic of ethical journalism entered mainstream discourse. Some networks voluntarily adopted new guidelines on how to approach minors, especially those from prominent families. They acknowledged that sensationalizing the lives of children, particularly those who had not made the decision to enter the public sphere, could have long-lasting emotional consequences. However, not everyone was on board with this shift. Critics of the ruling argued that it set a dangerous precedent for limiting free speech and stifling journalistic expression. For many, the idea that the media could be legally penalized for making disparaging comments about a public figure's family seemed like an infringement on the right to freely criticize public personalities. Talk shows, satirical programs, and comedic sketches, common outlets for social commentary, now had to tread more carefully. Their sharp, witty jabs at politicians and celebrities suddenly seemed to be in danger of crossing a line that would no longer be tolerated by the courts. These legal and cultural shifts were not just felt in the United States. Around the world, Melania's legal victory sparked similar conversations. International media outlets watched closely as the case unfolded, speculating that it could influence global media standards. Several European countries, which already had stricter laws about defamation and privacy, began exploring how to implement more robust protections for children of public figures. But the story didn't end with the court ruling. Behind the scenes, Melania's legal victory continued to unfold in unexpected ways. Melania had been publicly quiet about her motivations, but the case had always been about more than protecting Barron's dignity. It was also about changing the narrative. Melania had spent years observing how her family had been treated by the media, often with hostility and mockery, and realized that a change was necessary. She saw firsthand how the media could distort reality, feed public opinion, and even contribute to the creation of public personas that were inaccurate, dehumanizing, and harmful. The legal victory gave Melania a platform to voice these concerns. In private meetings with advocacy groups, she began to speak more openly about the toll that negative media attention could take on a family. Through these conversations, she found herself gravitating toward advocacy work for media reform. She recognized the need to address the way public figures, particularly their children, were subject to treatment that crossed ethical boundaries. In a rare public appearance months after the trial's conclusion, Melania attended a media ethics conference, where she delivered an emotional speech. She spoke of the immense pressure her family had faced, of the public's often cruel perception of their lives, and the long-lasting effects that such negativity could have on children. But most importantly, she called on the media industry to recognize its role in shaping society's attitudes and the lives of those it covered. "I've always believed in the power of words," she said during her address. "Words can build, or they can destroy. They can heal, or they can harm. And when we use our words to mock children, to belittle their humanity, we set a dangerous precedent, not just for the public, but for future generations. It is time for the media to take responsibility for the harm it causes." Her words resonated deeply, and the ripple effect was immediately felt. Her speech became a rallying cry for those advocating for more accountability within the media industry. It wasn't just about defending Barron. It was about preventing other children from facing similar treatment in the future. This idea of media accountability began to gain traction, sparking further reforms across journalism schools, editorial boards, and even legislative bodies. Despite the ongoing cultural shift, the media outlets that had been directly impacted by the lawsuit still found themselves grappling with the consequences of the court ruling. In the years that followed, some of the TV hosts involved in the lawsuit faced significant professional fallout. Their shows experienced a dip in ratings, with viewers divided over whether the hosts had acted inappropriately or if the case was an overreach of the legal system. Some media outlets, fearful of the legal repercussions, imposed stricter internal guidelines, leading to a shift in the kind of content they produced. While the lawsuit had initially started as an attempt to defend Barron, it ended up changing the course of media ethics in ways that no one could have predicted. For many, Melania's actions had turned a personal dispute into a national conversation, one that questioned the role of media in shaping public opinion and influencing personal lives. Whether intentional or not, Melania had become a driving force in the push for a more responsible media landscape. And in doing so, she had accomplished something far greater than just a legal victory. She had sparked a movement. However, not everyone was ready to embrace these changes. As the years went by, certain voices in the media continued to argue that public figures, including their families, were fair game. Some conservative pundits, in particular, decried the lawsuit as a form of censorship. They argued that public figures, especially those as prominent as the Trump family, should not be immune from criticism or ridicule, even if it involved their children. But Melania's supporters remained unwavering in their belief that her actions had been justified. They celebrated her legal victory as a triumph for family dignity and the sanctity of childhood. They believed that the ruling had set an important precedent for the future of media coverage, particularly in how the children of celebrities and politicians were treated. Over time, more and more individuals began to view her as a pioneering figure in the ongoing debate over media ethics. As for Barron, he grew up shielded from the public spotlight, his mother's legal battle ensuring that his childhood would be one of relative peace and privacy. Though he would inevitably continue to live in the public eye, Melania's actions had secured his right to exist outside the harsh scrutiny that had often been leveled at his family. He quietly navigated his teen years, shielded from the media's critical gaze and growing increasingly independent from the family's political legacy. In the end, Melania's legal battle represented much more than a personal vendetta against the media. It was an effort to change the way society viewed the privacy and dignity of children, especially those born into the public sphere. Through her actions, she had sparked an international conversation that would continue to evolve for years to come. Despite the legal victory, the questions about the relationship between the media and public figures remained. Was Melania's case the beginning of a larger movement toward more ethical standards in media coverage? Would it lead to widespread reform? Or would it remain an isolated case that eventually faded into history? What was certain, however, was that Melania's actions had made an indelible mark on the cultural landscape. And whether you agreed with her methods or not, there was no denying that she had succeeded in making a difference. As the years went by, Melania Trump's legal victory continued to ripple through the media landscape. Her lawsuit, originally seen by many as a defense of her son Barron, became a rallying point for those advocating for changes in how media outlets approach their coverage of public figures. The effects of the case were far-reaching, impacting the media industry, public discourse, and even the legal frameworks surrounding privacy rights. The case had raised fundamental questions about the responsibilities of media outlets, particularly in how they treated minors. Melania's victory sent a clear message that public figures' families, especially children who had not chosen to enter the public sphere, should not be subjected to ridicule or mockery. This message resonated with many, leading to an unprecedented wave of public support for media reform. While Melania herself continued to stay out of the media spotlight, her influence had only grown. She became an unintentional figurehead of the movement to protect the dignity of children in the public eye. Advocacy groups focused on children's rights and privacy rallied around her cause, organizing campaigns to pressure media outlets and governments to adopt more stringent rules governing how minors were depicted in the media. At the heart of these efforts was the idea that children, particularly those of prominent public figures, should not be fair game for ridicule, sensationalism, or public commentary. The public debate around media ethics reached a fever pitch, with many questioning where the line should be drawn between legitimate journalistic inquiry and harmful, intrusive reporting. The conversation was no longer just about one lawsuit or one family. It was about the fundamental rights of individuals to live private, protected lives, regardless of their status. In the aftermath of the case, several media organizations, particularly those with a reputation for tabloid-style reporting, faced significant backlash. Advertisers began to pull their support from shows and publications known for their controversial coverage of Barron Trump. In some cases, shows were canceled, and hosts who had been involved in the lawsuit saw their careers falter. Some attempted to apologize, but the damage had already been done. The backlash against the media's treatment of Barron Trump had exposed the darker side of the entertainment and news industries. The court ruling, and the subsequent public debate, had a profound effect on how television shows and tabloids approached their coverage of political families. In the years that followed, many networks adopted new guidelines aimed at protecting the privacy of public figures' children. In some cases, entire editorial policies were overhauled to emphasize the importance of respecting minors' rights to privacy. Networks that had once profited from sensationalizing the lives of celebrity families now found themselves under intense scrutiny. Legal experts and media consultants worked together to develop new standards for reporting on public figures, particularly when it came to the coverage of their children. Despite these changes, there were those who argued that Melania's lawsuit was an overreaction. Some conservative pundits, particularly those who had long advocated for more aggressive media scrutiny of public figures, expressed concerns that the lawsuit set a dangerous precedent. They worried that it could lead to a chilling effect, where journalists and comedians would become fearful of making critical comments about politicians and their families. For these individuals, the case was about more than just media ethics. It was about freedom of speech and the role of the press in holding those in power accountable. These critics saw the lawsuit as an attempt to silence dissent, claiming that it was part of a broader effort to stifle criticism of the Trump family. They argued that public figures, regardless of their position or wealth, should be open to scrutiny, and that children of politicians were no exception. In their view, Melania's legal victory threatened to undermine the very foundation of free speech in the media. But for Melania, the case was never about silencing criticism. It was about protecting her son from the kind of harsh, sometimes cruel, media attention that she herself had experienced for years. In private conversations with close friends and advisors, Melania revealed that her primary motivation had always been Barron's well-being. She had witnessed firsthand how the media's portrayal of her family had affected not only her own life, but also the lives of her children. Barron, who had largely remained out of the public eye during his childhood, was a particularly sensitive subject. The attention that his family attracted often seemed disproportionate and invasive, and Melania had made the decision to take action to ensure his privacy was respected. In the months following the lawsuit, Melania quietly became involved in a variety of advocacy projects focused on protecting children from harmful media coverage. She worked with several organizations dedicated to children's rights and privacy, lending her voice to efforts that sought to improve laws surrounding the protection of minors in the media. Her legal victory had provided her with a platform, and she was determined to use it to make a difference. She also began speaking more openly about her own experiences with the media. In interviews with select journalists, She shared her perspective on the pressure and scrutiny that came with being married to a highly polarizing political figure. She talked about the emotional toll that constant public criticism could have, not just on herself but on her entire family. She explained that her decision to take legal action was not born out of a desire for vengeance, but out of a deep concern for her son's future. "I didn't want Barron to grow up in a world where his every move was judged and criticized by people who didn't even know him," she said in one of her rare interviews. "He deserved the chance to be a child, free from the constant pressure of public scrutiny." Her words struck a chord with many parents, particularly those who had experienced similar struggles with protecting their own children from the harsh realities of the media. For some, Melania's actions were a beacon of hope, a reminder that it was possible to stand up to the forces that sought to invade their personal lives. Despite the continued media attention on the case, Barron remained largely out of the public eye. As he grew older, he became more independent, occasionally appearing in photos or public events with his parents but generally staying out of the media spotlight. His mother's legal victory had ensured that he would not be subjected to the kind of invasive scrutiny that had plagued the Trump family for years. While Barron would never fully escape the public's gaze, he had been given the opportunity to lead a life that was as normal as possible, given the circumstances. In the years that followed, Melania continued to be a quiet force behind the scenes, using her platform to advocate for causes that were important to her. She supported initiatives related to children's education, mental health, and the protection of privacy in the digital age. Though she had once been a controversial figure in the political sphere, she had evolved into a respected advocate for the well-being of children and families. Her role as a public figure had shifted, and she had successfully redefined her legacy. The legal victory over the media, while still fresh in the public's mind, had become part of a larger cultural conversation about the treatment of public figures, especially their children. The impact of the lawsuit continued to be felt in the media landscape, and over time, it became clear that the rules of engagement had changed. The case had not only influenced how the media reported on the Trump family, it had set a new standard for how all public figures' families would be treated. As the years passed, Melania's actions were viewed by many as a turning point in the ongoing battle between free speech and the right to privacy. Whether people agreed with her approach or not, there was no denying that she had succeeded in bringing about change. Her victory had forced the media to rethink its approach to reporting on public figures and their families, ensuring that future generations of children would be spared the kind of scrutiny and ridicule that had once been commonplace. And as for Melania herself, her legacy was no longer defined solely by her role as the First Lady of the United States. Instead, she had become a symbol of strength, resilience, and the importance of protecting the dignity and privacy of children in the media.